What do purple cows have to do with your job search and LinkedIn? That's what we're going to be talking about today on our second episode of the Career Hacking Podcast. I am Jeff Baird, and here with me is
Josh McCacken, showing up again. Really excited to be here, really excited to talk about this. Purple cows, that's definitely an ear catcher, if that's a thing.
Little curiosity hook. So don't let me forget to talk about the purple cow later, though. Sometimes I do that and then get talking and completely forget to, to talk about it.
Yeah.
Our focus today is going to be on LinkedIn and how you can attract more attention and get more recruiters and hiring managers looking at your LinkedIn profile, resulting in more interviews, which will help you get more job offers. And this is actually part of, we have a project right now with Newmont College of Computer Science. We are building some online material for them, for their students, so that they can get some additional job skills as they're nearing graduation. And so the first one that is in beta right now that we just finished is a free online course on interviews. And it covers things to do before the interview even starts, things that can help you get the interview in the first place. It covers the first impression when the interviewer comes out to get you. It covers what to do during the rest of the interview, and then a little bit on what to do when the interview's over. So I thought for this episode, as we're talking about purple cows, we can share a portion of that online course too, and talk about it, and talk about what we're seeing in our own careers and what we're hearing, people that we're coaching, hearing what they're seeing as they're out looking for jobs.
Yeah, I would say that, anybody who's either starting or in the middle or even thinking about doing these interview hacks, interview hacking, reviewing these interview hacks is going to be huge. The stuff that we share there isn't some crazy hard thing to implement. These are simple things that anybody can do that make a huge difference in how the recruiter or how the interviewer sees you. So definitely go check it out.
Those are my favorite kind of hacks because I'm a little bit lazy. So if you can give me something simple to do. All right, maybe not lazy, but I have so much on my plate, I don't need something else added to it, something that's difficult and complicated. So most of these things are super simple. And it pays off to do it early and often through the course of your career.
Agreed. And this LinkedIn stuff is going to be the same. I mean, for me, just getting like a little intro on it, like for me, for the longest time, LinkedIn was just like, make sure you have one. As long as you have one, that like is semi good, then at least somebody can go look you up, right? And they can see, okay, yeah, this person has a LinkedIn, they've been working, and here's their experience. But only, over the past year or so have I realized, based on some of the stats that we'll share, how important LinkedIn can be, how you can use it to actually give yourself that step up. So excited.
Exactly. The way I used to look at LinkedIn was, well, it's just a digital version of my resume. Yep. So I didn't put much focus and attention on it. But the more I've gone through my own career, and the more I've looked at what the recruiting industry is showing, the LinkedIn's really a marketplace. And to that thought, get the slide to progress here. There we go.
Yep.
What percentage of recruiters are searching on LinkedIn? There's a question to start us out. How many of the recruiters are out there looking on LinkedIn for candidates? 94%.
94. That is the stat that like scared me, right? And then after hearing that, like going to and working with some of these HR teams, some of these recruiting teams, and seeing that in fruition, right? Like it's real. Like they are spending so much time on LinkedIn. So
yeah, exactly.
Huge stat.
So if this is where, I don't know who the other 6% are that aren't using LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't know.
But this is where recruiters spend their time. And as I mentioned, it's a marketplace. So many of the things that we talk about in this podcast and our online courses are things that the marketing and sales industry have known for years. It's not like they're secrets. But for some reason, we look at job seeking differently. But we are a product in a market. We have our own personal brand. Even if we haven't put any thought and attention into our personal brand, we still have one. We still have an impression that we leave on people that are looking at our LinkedIn and our resume. And so we are a product in a market, and this is the marketplace. This is where you're going to have luck in building out your network and getting more job opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of you have seen this picture. This is a friend of mine that I'm not sure if he's still running it. I think his company was pivoting a little bit, but he used to have a job recruiting company. And in some of our speeches that we do at colleges and at recruiting companies, we'll show this picture as an exercise in first impressions, and we'll ask people what words pop into their head and what kinds of feelings they have when they see the picture. Now, he's changed his picture now. He doesn't have this on his website anymore, but this used to be the picture that he'd have out there. And it's interesting when we do this experiment with groups of people, how quickly our brains make decisions about him in just that first moment that we're seeing him. And it's also interesting to see how consistent the sentiments tend to be. This is an example that I usually share too in presentations. A word cloud from one group that we presented to, and the kinds of feelings and sentiments that group felt. And it's, you look at some of these words, wants to kill me, scared and scary, about to draw a pistol.
One that sticks out to me the one that sticks out to me right now is doesn't know what he's doing. That's like a super interesting thing to come out of that picture, because generally I think these scary or scared, are like very prominent, but doesn't know what he's doing is high up there.
So that's a great point. And in the context of looking for a job, that's the last thing you'd want someone to think.
Absolutely. And then Jeff, the other thing that I wanted to bring up here is like, these aren't just sentiments regarding the photo. I mean, they're prompted by that photo, but the important thing to remember is these are sentiments that surround the situation, surround your this interaction and any future interactions that you have with this person that's viewing your photo. I mean, that doesn't mean like you can't change it, but this is the initial like feeling or environment or, whatever, this is the initial gut feel that this person has, right? And that can a lot.
And sets the tone for the rest of your relationship. So no pressure on nailing first impression.
It's huge. It's huge.
And what does this have to do with LinkedIn? Well, you have a profile picture on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody looking at your picture and feeling this or thinking that you don't know what you're doing, then that can hurt your chances. And now this is a little interesting timing for this kind of a conversation, because there's this movement in the recruiting industry to try to get human bias out of the hiring process. I was looking on this one article, this guy was attempting to look at all the different human biases that exist and attempted to categorize them. And there's like 175 types, categories for human biases. So,
oh my goodness.
Humans don't really see things the way they are. We see them through the prism of our biases. And a lot of times that gets a negative connotation, because then we aren't making a good informed decision or a data informed decision. Some of the biases are out of necessity, because our minds and our brains are being bombarded constantly with stimulus and information, and our brains have to make shortcuts. It has to be able to filter that stuff out and jump to conclusions and make assumptions just for efficiency. So I'm rambling a little bit, but in this era right now, the recruiting industry is trying to get the human bias out. And I thought that was funny. I'm going to switch screens here for a second. There is this robot that is now conducting interviews as of May. Now it's not just AI. It's not an ATS or something like that that's looking at resumes. It's an actual robot that is interviewing people to see if they're a good fit for a job. So I thought I'd show you just a part of it here. It's cool and creepy.
All the qualifications and experience for this role. It seems like you're the perfect candidate.
Really? Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, Nadia.
Got the nice soft music.
Yeah, that was really tender.
And this guy, I'm starting to have flashbacks to iRobot here or something, though.
It definitely is.
There you go.
That's so crazy. I can't imagine having an interview like that. But I mean, the biases that you're talking about, I mean, they're hugely important, and understanding them, and I guess, I mean, this is kind of going the other way, right? This robot, trying to get rid of it on their end. But I think even more powerful than that is if I, as an interviewee, understand those biases and can affect them for my good, right? That I think that's way more effective.
Yeah, because we could get into a philosophical debate on this, but if there's 175 human biases out there, we're going to run into it eventually. It's not something that we can ignore. You can kick the can down the road. You can have ATSs and AIs looking at resumes. You can have a robot do initial interviews, but eventually you're going to have to interact with people. And so rather than fight against thousands or millions of years of human evolution, I want to understand it. I want to be able to leverage it so I'm not a victim of it. Yeah. And so that's, it might be a little counterintuitive, but that's why we spend a lot of our focus on how to understand it and use it. So let me switch back to our other screen here.
Oh, and I just wanted to make sure, when Jeff says ATS, everybody, that's applicant tracking system, just in case you weren't familiar with that. But that's, basically where everyone's applications go. When you put in for a job, there's some kind of system that your application goes into, and then it gets sorted and filtered and looked at from there.
Yeah, and it's a black hole in a lot of cases.
Yes.
Send your resume off and hope that you did a good enough job and to actually get through the applicant tracking system, because it's going to look at keywords and things like that to see if you're a good match before it even gets to a human eye.
100%.
So coming back to the picture here, don't know why my slides won't progress very good today. Okay, so this is in the context of a resume. A recruiter, you imagine a recruiter sitting there, they got a stack of resumes, and they're trying to go through them to decide who's going to advance to the next level. They're busy. They've got tons of stuff to do. I know the recruiter that we have here where I work now, there's only 5 people on the team when companies half their size have a team of 75. So they're super busy. And that means that on average, they're only spending about 6 seconds per resume to screen it and see if it's one that they're going to keep moving forward with. I don't have the numbers for LinkedIn, but I know that with first impression studies, it's usually even shorter than that for people to form first impressions if it's online, if it's a website. So my guess is that with LinkedIn, it's going to be the same, but probably even faster, probably even shorter amount of time that a recruiter is spending looking at your LinkedIn.
And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, I mean, I don't have like hard stats or anything, but this is almost a necessity for recruiters because, for me, being a data analyst, whenever I've talked to a recruiter about, a job that I've got or a job opening that I'm helping with, literally there are like hundreds, and I'm talking like 800 to 1,000 applications that come in. And a lot of those are like, I don't know, you could say they're from people who are just blasting their resume everywhere. But 800 applications is a lot to go through. You know what I mean? So the 6 seconds is almost a necessity with a lot of the jobs that are out there.
Exactly. So what can we do during those 6 seconds? So we've talked a little bit about how the profile picture is a powerful first impression. Your LinkedIn and your resume, you only get 6 seconds or less to capture their attention. And so how can we best leverage that? And there's some interesting insight we can get from eye tracking studies. This one's again with resume. Somebody that ran this research wanted to see where our attention and focus is when we're looking at a resume. And so this is an example of where their attention and their gaze was as they're looking at a resume. Related to this is eye tracking that happened on a website. Now you'll notice that they're a little different. You get hotspots on the resume, and on the website, where does the gaze tend to orient? Where are we spending most of our time and our attention? And it's up in that upper left quadrant to start. It'd be interesting too to see if this is different between cultures, because in ours we read left to right. When people are looking at websites, they're looking in the upper left quadrant, and then they scan left to right. And so that's, if I were building a website, that's where I'd want to put the most important information, is in the upper left quadrant, because that's where people are going to look first. And they found that they make kind of an F pattern when they look at when people are looking at websites.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It looks like little F's or.
Yeah. Now this is an old LinkedIn format where they did some eye tracking. I actually have a friend that he started a company called Sensum, and he's got some fun equipment. He's got eye tracking software. He has a facial recognition software. He has an EEG computer or a system, so that you can see where people's attention is and see what they're feeling in their facial expressions and see what's going on inside their brain. So I want to get with him. Maybe we'll even do another podcast with him.
We should, yeah.
See what this looks like now with LinkedIn. But this is an old one. You still see this favoring of the upper left-hand quadrant of LinkedIn, even with this format. So, if you look at what LinkedIn looks like now, and just to correct the record, this is not Facebook. That's not what the F means. Should have picked a different color than blue.
Yeah.
But if we tend to have our gaze and our focus in the upper left quadrant, and then make an F pattern with our eyes, isn't it interesting how LinkedIn has organized our profile pages?
Exactly like that, yeah.
And what did they put in the most prominent place on the page in that upper left quadrant? Our picture. That's our picture. So, LinkedIn's in the recruiting space, and during this time of trying to get human bias, well, it's putting your picture right where our gaze is going to go first when we go to a website. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but that's where, if you're going to start overhauling your LinkedIn profile, that's a great place to start, because that's where people are going to look first.
Yeah, and whatever it is that you put there, you're basically looking to catch somebody's eye, right? Like you're looking to make them interested enough to get into the details, I think, right? Exactly. Because if I scan in that F pattern and your pictures, let's say my picture's and it's just all right, and I just have my name in that first heading section and some boring kind of headline or whatever, I don't think people are going to take a longer look, right? I need something that says, hey, I want to read about this guy,
Yes, exactly. And in a lot of our speeches and content, we talk about the power of body language and nonverbals. We're constantly sending out nonverbal signals to people, indicating whether or not we're a friend, whether or not we're a foe. And so if our attention's on that picture, and that's the first place we look, our brain subconsciously is starting to make those assessments and trying to decide whether or not they want to pursue a relationship or an association with this person. Mm-hmm. So you got that at the main part that people are going to start looking at is the picture. You also have a cover photo, which is a great opportunity to do some personal branding. Picture's worth 1,000 words. So think about your own personal brand. Think about what you want to communicate, and you can put a cover photo on there that's consistent with that, that's going to communicate that. So I've been doing lots of speaking lately, and so I picked one where I was doing a keynote speech. Other ones that I've seen were, actually I could probably show you. This would be good to show anyway. Let me switch screens.
The thing that I like about that photo real quick, Jeff, is like you showing yourself in action, which is one of the things that like I now on my LinkedIn. I have all experience, I have written down my accomplishments, but how do I prove to them? And I like that your photo kind of shows what your LinkedIn says you do.
Yeah, it's all part of that personal branding, right? So Let's look up one of my friends here. Now she does a lot, and she works for Apex Systems, and she does a lot with helping people with their careers. And so her and I were actually working on a resume cookbook, and This would be a great topic for another podcast down the road too. We were looking at traditional resumes and disruptions to resumes, what makes them stand out. But one of the things we played with was doing some kind of a word cloud of your skills. And a word cloud's great because very quickly at a glance, our brains can tell what she's really good at, what her jam is. She's great at coaching and project management. It's very obvious. And so after the conversations her and I had, she decided to put this as her cover photo, did a little word cloud. And so now people that are coming to her page can see in an instant, without having to do a lot of cognitive effort, what she's really good at. So think about that with the banner. As part of this F pattern too, we're seeing the picture, we're seeing the cover photo, we're seeing their name, we see their title. So we'll want to focus on that. I'll talk more about that in a second. And that's what's going to draw, that's what people are going to notice first in those 6 seconds or less, and decide whether or not they want to click and whether or not they want to go to the next level. Okay, let me switch back to my slides.
I think that's an easy way to do it if you don't have, an action photo or like a photo that you feel comfortable with, just, your skills.
You bet. All right, so purple cow. Okay, you've got a recruiter going through a pile of resumes or going through a list like this. If I was searching for a web developer and there's a list of web developers that I might want to reach out to. This reminds me of when I was doing interviews for interns at some of the colleges. They'd sit me in a room and I'd do back-to-back 30-minute interviews all day long. And that got a little crazy, got a little boring. But what was difficult was that most of the students that were coming had taken the exact same classes and had done the exact same projects. And so it felt like copy-paste. You get the very first person coming in, and then the next person, the next person, the next person. And I'd start to get kind of open and frank with them and say, not to be rude, but what makes you stand out from the person that came before you or the person that's going to come after you? And, it's great that you did this class project, so did everyone else. There was nothing there's very few of them that had something that would differentiate them from everyone else. So the purple cow thing, that comes from a marketing guru named Seth Godin. And you can go to YouTube and watch his TED Talk. He has a TED Talk called How to Get Ideas to Spread, something like that. And he talks about the way you get ideas to spread is if it's something that's remarkable in the literal sense that you're going to remark about it, that you're going to talk about it. If you're driving down the highway and you see a whole bunch of cows, you aren't going to pay a whole lot of attention to them. Yeah, who cares? They're common, they're ordinary, doesn't draw your attention. But if you saw a purple cow, now your attention's drawn to that purple cow. You're going to, if anyone's in the car, you're going to say, look at that purple cow. You're going to take a picture of it and put it on social media. You're going to start remarking about it. You're going to start sharing it because it's so unusual. And in marketing, he has examples of that, of companies that do something unique to stand out, to get their brand out. One example was a car stereo company. They had a stereo system that was so massive that you had to have bulletproof glass or it would bust your windows out, which is pretty cool.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of sound.
Now the thing is nobody's buying that system. They're buying just normal systems. But as a consumer, and I'm trying to decide what company to go to buy a car stereo from, well, that's the one everyone's talking about. Everybody's remarking about this crazy car stereo system. That's drawing my attention to them, and that results in me being more likely to go to their company to buy a car stereo.
Absolutely.
But and I heard another study too of this panhandler he had his sign that he was holding up asking for money, but he did something a little different than the rest of them. He put a very specific dollar and cent amount on his sign.
Oh my gosh.
And that resulted in more money. Now there's the reason for this, something that's happening in your brain, but we have all these little happy chemicals that are going through our brain and through our blood system. And one of those is dopamine. Dopamine is a reward chemical that makes you feel good. You get a hit of dopamine when you have sugar. You get a dopamine if somebody uses your name. You get a dopamine when somebody likes your post on Facebook or on Instagram. And you get dopamine when something's different, when something stands out, when you see a purple cow.
Yep.
And so this panhandler, I don't know if he knew that was happening, but just the fact that his sign was a little different than the rest triggered dopamine in some people's brains, drew their attention to him, and that resulted in him getting more money.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say about that is if I saw somebody, a panhandler with a specific amount, I would notice it more. I wouldn't, I mean, and it wouldn't even necessarily be like, oh, I'll give this specific amount. I probably just would have given whatever I had at that moment. But the very fact that he just made himself stand out in any way, even though, it didn't necessarily like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like his specific amount didn't actually like just get him that specific amount, probably got him, just a ton more people to give him whatever they had. Right.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
is super cool. It's a little bit that they're unrelated, but the biggest takeaway there is that he just did something different. He was a purple cow. I want to be a purple cow.
Right. And I want to be a purple cow too. and so using this picture here, if I'm a recruiter and I'm searching for a web developer, just like when I was sitting in those interviews for interns, there's going to be a whole bunch of guys that all look kind of the same. Here's a software engineer, here's a front-end web dev, here's a they all look very, very similar, and there's not a whole lot of differentiation.
Yeah.
So what we can do is think about this principle and how to apply it. Now, the tricky thing with the job search is we still need to be professional.
Yes.
We don't want to go too far off the rails with our title.
Put some kind of weird picture or title or something.
You will get noticed. But,
yes. Yeah.
But I mean, it's similar to what we're talking about too, is we're trying to find a balance between trustworthiness, likability, but also confidence and confidence. This is kind of the same tricky balance. We want something unique, we want something different, but it has to still be professional. And you also still don't want to get so creative that they don't even know what your job position is. Like if you're a developer, it still needs to say in your title something that indicates that you're a developer.
Absolutely.
So that could be tough. I mean, you don't have a lot of space here. You got your name and a little title. But think about that principle. There's a couple of examples here that we can look at. Oh, and as a side note too, back to the picture. A lot of people I see on LinkedIn don't have pictures, but you are 7 times more likely to be found if you have a photo.
People don't have pictures. That's crazy to me.
Yep. And this is the real impact that'll have. So the picture, we're going to talk more too in a second about what you can do to upgrade your picture. But I'm actually going to do it now. So these pictures, I'm not going to go through this because of time, and we do this in a lot of our speeches and our courses, but on National Geographic Brain Games, they talk about a study where a professor was showing pictures of political candidates like these and asking volunteers if they could guess who won the election. And they'd show pairings like these. And they found that about 70% of the time people were guessing correctly who won the election from just the picture.
I love
and once again, showing how powerful that first impression is from a picture. We're voting on our elected officials off their picture.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what do we do with our picture? If you reach out to us, we can give you lots of guidance from a nonverbal perspective on what makes a perfect profile picture. But there's also this tool that's super awesome that we talk about in a lot of our speeches we go to at colleges. It's photofeeler.com. So have you done this recently, Josh? Have you put a new picture out yet?
When we did our last presentation at Newmont, I put one out there, but to be honest, I haven't been back. So I probably have lots of votes. I got to go check it out.
I probably need to do it again. But PhotoFeeler's cool and uncomfortable. You can put your picture out there, and they have different categories. They have a business category, they have a social and a dating category. So the business is the one that we usually focus on. But you can put pictures out there, and then crowdsourced, people will rate you on competence, likability, and influence. So that can be pretty uncomfortable, but I threw the picture that you see on my LinkedIn, went through this rigor. I put it out on Photo Feeler and then cringed a little bit as I waited for the feedback to come in.
So hard, but it's so valuable.
Yeah, I think I actually put 2 or 3 pictures, and then the one that got the best ratings is the one that I went with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you want to give people options, because like, you give yourself options, because if you just put one picture up there and it's not good, like, or the ratings aren't good, then you're just gonna feel super bad. Like, give people some options and use what works best, right?
Good call. And then we aren't beating ourselves up too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this is an intern that I hired a few years ago, and he put 2 different pictures, and you can see how much of a difference there was in his ratings. So same dude, but in one picture, he appeared more competent and more likable and more influential. So pretty crazy. So you can put your picture out there. I won't spend too much time on this either, but if you go to their blog, and they've taken the data from all these ratings to see what it is that makes a perfect profile picture as well. So I won't get into this. We talk about it more in the online course if you want to look at that.
Definitely go check it out.
I think I'll skip through some of these too. These are other tips and tricks. Believe it or not, I see this kind of stuff. I see contempt. I see fear. I see these expressions on people's faces in their LinkedIn. So
yeah.
But to the online course, and you can get more on that.
Definitely.
But that's kind of the first thing to think about is your picture. Get a picture out there if you don't have one. Have it go through something like Photo Feeler, or if you reach out to us, we can give you some tips too. But get a good picture, since that's where people are going to look first.
Yeah, it's huge.
And then going back to the title, I kind of went on a little tangent there, but going back to your job title, let's look at some examples of people that are trying to make it catchy, trying to make it different, while still being descriptive and professional. So this is another friend of mine. He owns a job recruiting company. I liked his, it says techie turned talent executive.
Yeah.
Triple alliteration. It's catchy. And it's
you still know what he does.
You know what he does. And it differentiates him from all the other recruiters. That's kind of his area of focus for his recruiting company. A lot of recruiting companies will just have recruiters, but he gets recruiters that have been in the IT industry, that have been developers, that have been data folks, and so that they know really well what to staff for and what kind of people to look for. And so you can catch that in his title. He's a techie. He's a nerd like the rest of us that is now doing recruiting stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got down here nerdy, so I didn't insult him. He called himself that.
Yeah, you could use it because he did.
Here's another example: CX empath and story wizard.
Story wizard.
And I like that he's put some thought at least into his branding. I'm not entirely sure what the cover photo is, but he's at least given some thought to it, to his overall branding and presence.
Yeah, it kind of matches.
Yep. Now, I don't know about you, but the challenge I've had with my title is I've got like 3 or 4 things going on right now. So I've had a difficult time. You'll probably see me change mine often as I am trying to find this balance too of doing something that's catchy, but still descriptive and still professional. So give that some thought and play with it. Get something that will trigger dopamine in a recruiter's brain and get them to want to click.
Yeah, here, one thing real quick on that. I like that he is playing to his network, his job community, right? Because I mean, he's a CX guy. If he was a salesman and said like sales empath, like, or I mean, I guess that might work, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to say something or have something that's going to catch your community, or I guess the job that you want, like have it be specific, right? There's some professions where I think if you called yourself an empath or a wizard, people might think like this guy's a weirdo. but I think this works perfectly, going into CX. So anyway, just a little blurb there.
Yeah, knowing your audience basically.
Yep, exactly.
And so that takes some effort and thought. I even liked his description down here where he's got storytelling, wizardry equals
that algorithm. Yeah.
Kind of fun. So give that some thought too. Going to skip through some of this stuff. Now, LinkedIn is And like I said, I used to think of LinkedIn as just another resume, but you have so much opportunity beyond what the resume can provide. You have the resume stuff, you have your experience, but now you have this platform where you can add all this other information. A tricky thing when you're hiring is, especially if you don't know the person, it's a little bit of a gamble. You don't know that they can do the job. They've told you they have experience and that they're good at this, but you don't really know. And so I like to show as much as possible through if I'm going through an interview process that I can do it. LinkedIn can allow you to do that. You can upload example projects. You can upload multimedia to your LinkedIn that shows your awesomeness, so that it goes beyond just telling somebody. They can actually see it in action.
Yep.
This guy's got some good branding going on too. He's got a good profile picture, a good cover photo. He additionally is using his title to highlight when his next event is, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. So think about that too. If you've got a dashboard that you've built, if you have some cool web dev stuff you've done, you can put it here, which helps round out your LinkedIn profile and can give people some more stuff to look at about you.
Yeah.
Other things that should be a given, but sometimes aren't: endorsements and recommendations. You want to give back to your community and your peers by giving them endorsements and recommendations. And then as you're getting them too, that's additional social proof for your awesomeness. That's stuff you can't as easily get on your resume. So I think that's probably a good stopping point to at least get you thinking. Take a look at your LinkedIn profile and see. In one presentation, I did a first impression exercise similar to the one with the picture and the word cloud. I did that with somebody's LinkedIn profile. And that was interesting too, to see what words came up. Did people see you and see your branding the way that you're intending? Are you communicating what you really want to? So you might try that with your own profile picture, maybe even get some friends to look at your picture and see how it looks. And then if you want, now we skipped a lot of slides here. But as I said, this is part of the free online course that we have. So if you want to reach out to either of us, here's our social media and my email and LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me and I can give you a link to the free online course that's in beta right now. And that will give you more on LinkedIn. It's going to give you a lot more on the interview process to help next time you go to an interview to knock it out of the park and get a bigger offer.
Yeah, everyone should check it out for reals. The stuff that we're sharing, like I say, it's everything we went through today is simple. It's easy to do. I mean, there may be some, more nebulous portions of it, but that's why we're here. So reach out to us with questions, whatever you have, but go check out. I mean, it's a free course. Go check it out. Capture, what sticks out to you, the 2 or 3 things that are super easy that you can do. And I promise, it's going to make a lot of sense.
And yes, that is Vince Vaughn.
Yes, it's Vince Vaughn. Good old Vince.
He put out, I don't remember, I think it was for some movie he did, but he had a bunch of stock photos that they produced.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think this is from the internship or something where he's working for Google. Yeah.
Is that what I'm gonna have to go check that movie out now? Is it a movie?
Yeah, it's a movie. It's a little interesting, but it's good, and I'm sure he definitely used some of these hacks to get that internship. But yeah, it's basically about him and Owen Wilson. They're a little older, working at Google. With all these young bloods that are really techie and stuff. So
this other guy's an actor too, right? He's in it, I think.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
there's my homework assignment. I got to go watch. It's called The Internship.
The Internship. Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, there's my weekend homework assignment.
Yeah, love it. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much. This stuff is incredible. I mean, I've seen it countless times now, but every time, I'm having these new thoughts and these new epiphanies about just little things that I think can help, and these things are applicable to everyone out there. So give them a try. Let us know how they work for you, or ask us some questions, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. I hope this is helpful. If you have questions, like you said, reach out to us, or if you have topics that you'd like us to discuss at one of the future podcasts, then let us know.
For sure.
All right. Have a great week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.